Hi, it's Donna Rodman. I'm a registered landscape architect. This will be my third video that I've created for marketing purposes for Our Designs Landscape Architects. The question I have today to answer that often a client will ask is, how much is this process of doing a preliminary design and getting the quotations all ready for me going to cost? I mean, what do I need to budget for? And we have to almost reverse that question back to the client reflectively and ask them, do they have a budget or a ceiling to the budget? What type of flexibility there might be in their budget assessment for them. Usually we have to do this in the first or second interview with our client, and we do interviews. We usually come in to do a site inventory first so we can see the breadth of the project, and we often do it with our client so we can understand what we need to design for. We usually sit down with the client and we have a series of questions to ask, and one of those questions will be, what's your timeline? What's your budget? When a registered landscape architect starts to work on a project, they go through a creative design process, and yet at the same time they have to have an analytical process in place. So by knowing our client's budget, we know how complex the design needs to be, what our plant selections need to be, how much area needs to be left open and untouched, and how much area needs to be redesigned and modified. At the same time, we're dealing with trying to assess the longevity of the design. So we would be asking our questions of the client, such as, how long do you plan to be living in your home? Or if this is a multifamily residential project, when would you come to revisit the landscape design? Often in private homes, it's 15 to 20 years that they start to reorganizing their garden space again, or they move, or their house is up for sale. In multifamily residential, it could be 30 to 40 years before they start to revisit their surrounding landscape designs and try to change them up to match whatever's going on with the surrounding environment and apartment complexes beside them. So the budget becomes almost a living document for us. We create Excel sheets, we create budgeted graphics to figure out, as a project is unfolding, what it's going to cost at the end of the project. And before we even have our preconceptual design completed, we're accumulating information about the cost of the plant materials, how much materials we have as far as soils, are we concreting an area, are we putting a stair system in, and we have rough ideas of how much these cost. But typically we do a preconceptual design. We look to our client for its approval. At the same time that we do that, we run this preconceptual design past several contractors. We ask them for preliminary quotations. And in one project, I went through quite a number of contractors, finally coming down to 3 who gave me a very accurate estimate and quotation for particular design installation. That information goes into this spreadsheet, an Excel sheet, along with, and I do written quotations from nurseries, so I know what my plant costs will be, and if I have to, I can reduce my plant quantities, sizes, pot sizes and such, to reduce the costs, and I try the very best to come in under budget. When we get the contractor's estimates in, we have then a very a finer line on what the labor will be and the materials will be for this project, as well as the timeline. That information is provided to the client, and hopefully they approve it. We look for a letter of approval, and then we start proceeding to finalize the quotations and ask those 3 contractors, for example, to review their contracts, their proposals, and if there's been any changes in the design during that period of time when we're seeking approval from the client, then those changes are reflected in the quotations. At the beginning of this process, in our interviewing of the client and their interviewing of us, we're asking about this budget. We need to have that information. We have a series of questions we ask, and they are supporting questions. For example, the maintenance of your garden. How are you planning on maintaining it? Are you a gardener? Do you love to garden enough to want to do all the watering, to do the trimming, weeding, that sort of thing? Or are you going to hire a contractor to do that for you on a monthly basis? And we would be recommending, therefore, that there be a contingency or a budget line for them after this project is done and the budgets are finalized, so that they know that they've got a budget in place to handle the maintenance. This is for a private garden as well as multifamily residential. The other part of it is towards the starting of the design concept work, and part of that maintenance question is, how are you going to water your garden? You can go from the very conservative area of watering your garden with weeper hoses and automatic timers, hand watering, that type of thing that a homeowner might do, as opposed to in a multifamily residential, if they have a landscape committee, then there may be some tasks that the landscape committee can do as far as maintaining and watering the garden on that kind of a conservative system, or we have a full irrigation system. And that adds to the budget and the costs, not only for my fees. Then we have to talk to a registered irrigation professional, a designer who is trained to do these designs with all the heads and all the lines running in a garden design. And we work with them so that we know and they know where our planting beds are going in, and then consequently where the heads have to go and how much of a radius of spray that these heads have to cover the plant material. Some areas of a garden might be more drought tolerant than others, and again, that has to be worked into the irrigation designer's plans. So this is a certified, industrially certified professional who again adds to the cost of creating a preliminary design concept. The costs can run between private residential between $25,000 to $30,000. I've had one home that came in over $40,000, and that was because we had an access problem to the garden as well, which is another budget item that the contractors usually identify quickly. And or a multifamily residential project can run between $30,000 to $35,000 to $40,000, often $50,000 for an apartment complex. So it's the budget is an awfully flexible in precise science at the start of a project, and it gets refined and refined and refined until we have a finite budget that you end up with when you finally choose the contractor for your project. And all sorts of little things happen in between, which we manage as registered landscape architects to have the budget be reasonable, support the design, and have the design be flexible and reasonable enough to be within the budget. So parts of the design may shift and change as the process unfolds, and that might take a period of 2 or 3 months to get all of those pieces in place for a project to even begin the installation of a design project. I'm hoping that that's helpful for you, some of that information. My next video will probably be on the survey questions that we ask of our clients, the experiential, the esoteric pieces that we need answers to in the creative process that help us in our design process. So I thank you very, very much for your time and attention, and I hope that this has been an interesting and informative video for you on about budget and some of the elements that go into the landscape budget estimate that we produce for you.